That's okay.
Oh, wonderful.
Trying to
Thank you.
figure out. I guess I can't raise
I'll
the seat. I feel like I'm
count
sitting
you
on
for
a
it.
bucket.
They are.
Test. All right, you guys are live.
Okay.
Right. Hold on just a minute.
So we don't officially have a chairperson the first meeting, but Mary, do you mind
Call to
getting us
order?
through calling to order and the
Sure.
nomination?
I'd like to call to order this January meeting of the Environmental Advisory Committee and acknowledge that the press and public have been duly notified of the meeting in accordance with the Freedom of Information Act. And the first order on the agenda is nomination and election of chair and vice chair for 2023. Are there any nominations?
I'd like to nominate Dr. Sandy Brotherton if she will agree to serve as chair. She'd be awesome.
Are there any other nominations?
We have a second for that nomination?
Oh, that's,
I'll second.
okay, thank you. All right, other nominations? If there are none, everybody in favor of that, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous.
All right.
Congratulations.
Sandy, you take it from there.
Wasn't there a third part of that, relieved?
We need to kiss the ring or kneel or bow.
I didn't know that I was going to be in charge
Well,
of
you
the
didn't wear a ring,
meeting.
so we can't kiss it.
Thank you very much for stepping up
Oh, thank you,
and agreeing to lead.
thank you.
Very good.
So am I going to lead the meeting this time?
I
Yep.
think the next
You
thing.
take it
is
from
for
there.
you
So
to ask
nomination for vice
nomination
chair,
for
and we'll
vice
just
chair.
go from there.
Okay, all right. Are there nominations for vice chair?
I would like to nominate Dr. Linda Plunkett for vice chair.
If she'll accept, I'll second that nomination.
I will do it, thank you.
All in favor? Say aye.
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 Or relieved.
Opposed?
Mary, you did a lot of nominating others. I noticed as she very quickly kind of nominated anybody around her.
Good.
Thank you all.
Or relieved.
I'm sure y'all will be
Very
great.
good, thank you.
You both.
Yeah.
I'd like to just take a moment to thank Mary for all of her work over the past year. You, I know, kind of came into this with some hesitation, and I think you've just done a really fabulous job, and we really appreciate you being willing to take on that responsibility in the first year of our committee. So thank you very much.
Well done. You did an excellent job.
Yes, very much so. And
Absolutely.
so I am going to need to be chair in training. Maybe we can talk. We can talk and get some hints about how to make this process as smooth as it has been for you. So we have approval of the previous meeting minutes. So I wanted to see if everybody received the minutes, I think, in their email. And is anybody who wants to make a motion to approve the minutes from the last meeting?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second,
Minutes are approved.
Take a vote on that.
We vote.
Oh, vote on that? Okay, thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
aye.
Opposed? Okay, the minutes are approved.
Thank you.
All right. Next on the agenda is citizen comments. And I think we have some guests here.
So
Is
no,
that correct?
so no citizens, so we'll move right on to the presentation by Smart Recycling.
Oh, okay. Okay, I saw people in the audience, so wasn't sure. Okay, yes, so we have a presentation by Smart Recycling, Megan McGill and Kevin Outen, okay,
And-
about the food composting program.
And so I would just preface and introduce Megan and Kevin by saying that you all have seen already a proposal from this group, and at your last, and I can't remember who was and who was not here, but at the last meeting, we collectively agreed to have them come to you all, explain a little bit about the program that the Isle of Palms would be joining. So they're here, they were requested, and they were happy to come join us, so we appreciate that. With that, I'll let them take it over and answer any questions that you all have of them. So Megan or Kevin, if you don't mind just kind of high level explaining the program, how it would work in the city, and then I'm sure there'll be follow-up questions. And if you don't mind, I don't know if that mic is on.
Amy, you got it to work, yeah.
Testing.
Yep, if you're just talking to the mic, that ensures that folks online can catch your voice.
Oh, okay. Well, that just put the pressure.
It's watched by millions.
Okay, so I'm Megan with Smart Recycling. As you probably all know, the city of Charleston started a composting residential pilot program in 2022. It was really successful. Their goal was to divert 20 tons in the first 6 months. 1 year later, they've diverted over 54 tons. They did that with 3 locations throughout the city of Charleston, and then at the end of the year, Folly Beach and the county of Charleston both decided to kind of join that pilot program. So what that would look like if you all also wanted to join is the city is going to continue to house the training for that, the information for that. They've got a website dedicated to letting citizens know where are drop sites, where are those carts located, how often they're being serviced, and then of course the training. So if a resident wants to start composting with this program, they do have to sign up. So the city's website, they go there, they register for the program, and that's going to teach them what goes in the cart and what doesn't. And at the end, it's going to give them a little quiz to make sure they learned what they just read. And if they complete that successfully, it gives them the code to the cart. So all of these carts in this program have locks on them, and that's how we prevent contamination. So the only people that are going to have a code had to have gone through that training first. And so far, that's been super successful. We haven't had any contamination issues in this program. Aside from occasional, you might see the wrong thing, but residents really care about it. By the time they've got the code, they clearly wanted to participate. They've got the information to do it. They've gone, the extra mile of driving to that, collecting their food waste, driving it to that location. So they want to do the program right by the time they're unlocking that lid. So if they do see something wrong, for example, they would let Katie at the city know that they've witnessed a concern, or they'll pull it out if they can. But the majority of the residents are using that program right. Our drivers have never had to deny a cart because of contamination. So that's huge. That says to me that the lock program is working. So if you guys decided to join, the city would continue to house all that for choosing the location of your carts. You'd be responsible for, taking care of the location of your carts. For example, the city has put up signs at their carts. I don't know if you guys would want to do that, but they have signage at each of their carts, throughout the city, and that part would fall on you. But the actual housing of the program, sharing the data every month, the city handles all of that, so that way we can grow it into a regional program. So from there, I'll take questions.
I have a question.
ma'am.
Thank you. That's good to know there's such enthusiastic participation. Is that downtown Charleston, do residents and businesses participate? Are the restaurants, for example, participating, or is it just for residents?
This program is for residents only.
Okay.
Smart does service businesses, so each business can come and get a contract with us for service, but the city doesn't want businesses filling up their carts because, of course, you'd be paying for yours, they're paying for that. So if a business is interested, we could work out a contract with them and service them as well. But this particular program is targeted for residents in particular. And I want to say there's over 800 residents throughout the county that are the Tri-County who are signed up. So that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it is. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Can you, I know it's a little bit in here, but can you just explain your sort of cradle to grave? You pick the material up, where does it go? How does it get processed? And where is its ultimate point of disposition.
Absolutely. So in this program, of course, it's the starting point's going to be in residents' homes. So you can collect your food waste in any kind of container you want. They, of course, do, they sell pretty ones if you want something beautiful on your counter, but you could also upcycle an old ice cream carton, the plastic kind with the lid. I would recommend collecting it in something with a lid. You could also collect it and put it in your freezer if, it's going to be a few days before you're going to make it to a drop site. That's a good option. A fridge or freezer will keep it from the rotting process happening on your countertop. But then the residents are going to take that food waste to their closest compost cart and unlock it. They're going to dump their bin in, lock it back up, and then Smart comes along with a truck and trailer twice a week. Right now throughout the resident program, that's what we're doing, is twice a week is the minimum. And we have a system that's going to lift the cart. So the cart is a 64-gallon cart. It's on wheels. It has 4 wheels, not just 2. So it's the same kind of size as what you might have at home that you roll out to the road. But the difference is it has 4 wheels instead of 2, so you don't have to tip 300 pounds of food waste back to get it somewhere. It also has a never mind. Sorry. Okay. So then they're going to empty it. Smart's going to come along, and we are going to put it on this tipper that we have. So we have like a hydraulic system lifts it up. It tips it into the back of that trailer bed that's sealed, so it's not going to, leak on the street. And then they put it back down. We also have a pressure washer system on board, so our driver's going to rinse that cart out, lift it again so that all of that goes back in there. And then we put a compostable liner in it for an extra layer of cleanliness. Keeps the carts a lot fresher that way. Then from there, we take it here in the Charleston area, we take it to the Bees Ferry compost facility that's run by Bees Ferry and McGill. And they do the compost magic there. They turn it into compost, and then they sell it. You have a couple of options. Residents can go to Bees Ferry with a 5-gallon bucket. They can buy the bucket for $1. But they also have retailers throughout the Low Country that sell it in bulk. So they, get it to the retailers, and then the retailers sell it in bulk. And residents can find the closest retailer at beesbestcompost.com. So if you go in, you put it in your zip code, it'll tell you what local retailers are carrying their compost so that you can complete that full circle if you've got a garden at home and you want to use it.
Are the retailers for-profit entities?
Probably, I would say almost certainly all of them are, yes.
So we're paying them to take our waste, to make compost, to make money. I'm just thinking through. I guess the other thing, and this came up, I think, with the glass recycling in terms of our long-term liability. Do you indemnify or an equivalent so that we have no liability once you pick it up and take it? So since we no longer have control of how it's going to be handled or where it's going to go, would the city be indemnified or basically be covered for ill-gotten use of the material somewhere down the road?
That's a great question. I'm not uncomfortable with that because you're saying once we take it, you want us to be responsible for what
Yeah, I
happens
come
to
from a
it.
world of cleaning up Superfund sites, so when
Yeah.
we leave it, when you take it, what you'll do in cases like with other wastes, facilities will give you what they call a certificate of destruction or an equivalent, basically says, I took your material this day, I'm taking it to so-and-so. In this case, what we're saying is if you're going to take it and we have no control over where it's going to go, then I'm recommending, or I would suggest that we don't want to, we'd want to be waived of any further responsibility or liability for the waste. And part of that plays into one of the other things we've been talking about. I know this is food waste, but PFAS is becoming a very significant issue. And there's been recent studies that if you have PFAS in these compost piles, it is leaching into the ground, it is leaching into the water is getting into the ground, and everything's becoming a remediation site. So this is going to be food waste, so you should have limited PFAS because you're not taking the consumer goods. It's not like taking all of your garbage. But the idea would be that if we're paying it to be taken away, and if it's going to a facility where it's treated, and then it's being taken by a for-profit entity, and we have no control over that, then it would make sense that we would not want to have to assume any liability for the material once it's taken. just a thought point. Obviously, my fellow colleagues can, or committee members can weigh in on that, but.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
Megan, we could just share with you the language that the city attorney was comfortable with Fisher. And Fisher had no problem with it. I mean, I think it is in your line of work that once we give it to you, that if you did something nefarious with it, we wouldn't be held responsible for
Right.
it. So I don't,
Yeah.
it didn't really cause any.
This is not Staten Island. We're not going to have be responsible for that barge that never lands. So I don't mean to sound, dramatic or dreadful, but I'm an environmental engineer, environmental scientist, and I've been in the environmental industry for 36 years, and I've seen the worst and I've seen the best. What we're proposing here is the best and what we want for our future, but we want to make sure that we're not contributing to something that used to be the worst, which is getting into cleanups and stuff like that.
Yes,
So
for
that's all.
sure.
It's great what you're doing,
Yeah, and what I was going to say to answer was if you can, I don't know if that's currently in our contract, but if you can provide guidance on the wording, I don't foresee any issues with agreeing to that, so.
Right.
Yes, ma'am.
Hey, Megan, I had a question. It sounds like you guys have been pretty successful, and my question for you is, what methods have you used to try and get the word out to the consumer and to the public and to encourage their participation?
Sure. So the city has done the bulk of that, advertising promotion, so to speak. So they're very busy on their social media sharing it, and then Smart, of course, also shares whatever they put out. But in addition to that, so far what the city's done is they did several trainings when we started the pilot program, and I attended each of those and came and did the training on behalf of Smart. They did in-person ones as well as we did a webinar one because it was still kind of COVID-y at the time.
So are you talking about training for people who were interested?
For the residents.
Okay.
So, for example, one of them was at Frothy Beard in West Ashley. So anybody could register and come to that event. And then we had the city there, the county there, and myself to educate them on why to compost, how to compost. And then the county told them, how they could compost at home. And then myself and the city told them if you can't compost at home, how you could start composting with the city residential pilot program. Another thing they did was they were present at the West Ashley Farmers Market. So I volunteered my time about once a month and joined Katie and some other volunteers, and they had a booth at their farmers market where we would have, that particular park had a cart. So we would actually bring the cart over and we would just talk to everybody that walked by about it and ask them if they'd heard about the program, if they were interested. That's another way to get the word out. I know that the city themselves are expanding their program in 2023. And so she's already telling me we're planning at least 4 trainings with that. So, with that, you could still piggyback off of that. And, I know it's probably Isle of Palm. I don't know. I used to live on James Island, so I know the island motto is you never want to leave the island. But they could, attend those, trainings, or we could hold additional ones out here if you'd want. And myself or Kevin would be willing to come and attend those and do the bulk of the training. So any kind of community event that, you can think of where you could have a table, we could do something like that. Do you guys have a farmer's market out here on? Mm-hmm. So that might be an option.
And I know that with the
It's seasonal.
trainings, they provide a certain number of at-home bins for free if you came to the training, right?
Yeah, the city did purchase those. So the
Right.
city purchased those, and they use that, as a kind of to get people to come out. They gave away some countertop cart bins for residents.
We also have a street fair on March the 4th coming up on the front beach. And my question was about the location of the carts. You said one would be in your proposal at the marina and the other one be at Front Beach. What is the Front Beach location that you're considering?
So Barry, let me
say I didn't
talk
think of.
to that one because I think that was
Yeah.
by our direction.
Okay.
We have reached out to the Harris Teeter about their willingness to allow this. They were non-committal. We invited them to come tonight to just hear how the program would work. They didn't come tonight, so I don't know if that is. I don't know. I don't know if they're not going to be a willing partner. If they are, we will. I think based on your recommendation, I think that the understanding is that would be the ideal location to have it adjacent to the glass recycling bin, but we just don't know if they're willing to house it yet. So that would be something we'd need to do. So
If not, what about behind the public safety building where all the carts for the recycling is
we could do it there.
taken?
If you all thought that was a better.
That's near that ramp where the restaurants take all their stuff anyway,
Oh, at the, yeah.
behind
We
the
could do it.
dinghy.
I think that would make more sense than the front beach. You'd have to kind of go out of your way and,
Yeah.
find a place to pull up.
So
The
it would
smaller
probably be Harris
municipal lot.
Teeter first choice and then maybe,
That's kind of what I was thinking.
It's a
that
nice
if-
central
Yeah.
location, too.
Yeah.
Easy to get to.
The only problem with the Harris Teeter is I think things get kind of lost over there. There are lots of containers that are sitting in the parking lot, and I know that they need parking spaces available for residents and visitors. They need the spaces that are closest to the store. They're trying to not block any access for those, but it seems like the location of the glass recycling cart is in an area where it's really hard to find, and where we're kind of competing with other things. There's a lot of visual clutter, and so
You think the municipal lots would be better than the Harris Teeter for both?
I'm kind of thinking that might be the case because it would give us one central location to have everything.
I gave my mother directions to the glass recycling, and she had a lot of trouble finding it. So that's a data point. Where on Front Beach were you thinking?
I was thinking the large parking lot, but it could be, so, we refer to the city owns two lots there. One we call the large parking lot, and then the small parking lot. The small one is behind the public safety building. It is smaller. It's behind the red roof building of the beach company. There is, the city already has a trash compactor there, but in my mind, that's way back in the corner farthest from the entrance. So I would think that we would want it to be closest to Pavilion Boulevard. I was thinking in the large lot just because it's got more space available. So that would be, as you're heading towards the ocean down Pavilion, it would be the one on the left.
Would that be around where the sandbag stations
Yes,
are?
exactly, that lot.
Yeah, I mean, you have to.
I would think closer to the entrance. The challenge there, of course, is going to be if it's there in
Weekends.
weekends
You
and
don't
summer
go then.
months, it's going to be very full. And I don't know if it would be, well, this one would have a lock on it, but I kind of do think it would cause glass recycling problems. I don't think that.
Yeah, concern, people might start stacking stuff on top of it, on side of it, all around it, I mean, human behavior has it, it needs to be as convenient, as visible and convenient as possible. It is a voluntary program, so the simpler you can make it for people to find it and use it, and the more inconvenient you can make for people who would not necessarily, who would find a way to use it.
What about, I
The way
forget
it's
the
not
name of the
designed.
park, but the little park that's next to the Harris Teeter parking lot?
City owns
because-
that. Carmen R. Bunch Park.
Yeah, because a lot of the city pickups are in parks, and it's
Maybe that's a
that
good-
central parking lot. You just have to-
In and out,
Yeah.
there's space to pull over.
Yeah.
That's actually not a bad idea. It's easy to find.
Move both of them, both the glass and food there.
That makes sense to me.
Is that the one that's next to like the veterinary
Yes,
center? down
Yeah.
there?
across the driveway, yeah.
It looks like an undeveloped lot if you didn't stop and actually look
Yeah,
and read
yeah.
that it was a park. But
Can I ask a separate question? Well, maybe we percolate on the location issue. Has your group done anything? I have a question about two subpopulations. I'll maybe take the easier one first. Has your group done anything with schools? Obviously we are in Isle of Palms, but a lot of the kids go to Sullivan's Island Elementary School. I'm just curious.
Yes.
what that.
So actually,
like.
Sullivan's Island is a participant in our
Okay.
program. We currently have a contract with Charleston County School District and with Horry County School District. So a number of schools in both of those counties participate in our program. So the students are separating their waste and putting them in the compost bins when they're having lunch.
And they're pretty good about getting them in the right bins. I know you said you haven't had a lot of issues. I don't know if that was issues with just residential composting or commercial or school-based composting. So I was curious how good students are at following the directions.
I hate to go on record.
Don't rat them out.
Plead the fifth.
I would say the program has been, and in many cases is very successful. I would say post-COVID school systems, there hasn't been a lot of opportunity for training for staff and students. You know, they're just so understaffed and overwhelmed with the duties they already have. So it's really hard to even get them to let us come in and do the training. So it's kind of a mixed bag, but the school systems that have a program and are using it, it's pretty successful once you get it up and going.
Okay, that's great to hear. The other group, and I don't really know, I guess I'll just say the word vacationers. I don't know how to tackle that beast because this island has a mix of population, and particularly in the summer months, there's a lot of vacationers here, short-term visitors. And I don't know how they fit into participating or not participating in the program. Obviously, there'd be a contributor to the problem if they're not, composting their food waste. But just curious if you've dealt with that population already in other settings. I don't know, Myrtle Beach, is it
Folly.
Horry County or Folly? How's that working? Is that group included or?
So I'll be honest, I haven't given that a lot of thought. Folly just joined the program in the last couple of months. I think they started October 1st, so it's probably just been mostly residents at this point that there is the majority. And because of the having to sign up to get the training, to get the code, I think it would take some figuring out how we first of all, promote to those vacation, those short-term visitors. How do we get the word out to them? And then how do we share the information about, how to get into the carts? So that's definitely a tricky one to figure out, a hard nut to crack. I don't know the solution, but I'm certainly willing to think about it.
Maybe it'd be something where the owner of the residence would figure it into a rental.
Sure.
They would be the ones that have to sign up, obviously, as the resident, right?
Right.
So the owner they set it up so it would be a communication between them and their renter or whoever saying that, hey, we got you set up, this is where you dispose of your food waste. Just like you have rules of, when you go stay somewhere, put your linens here, do this, do that. That would just be another thing that they could tack on. That's just something that came up.
I mean,
That you figure in along with a vacation home.
John, I do know that just simple recycling has been a challenge for that group, so I guess I'm thinking that just how to roll it requires a different rollout and the rollout date. One owner comes and it's the prior tenant's waste in the recycling bin. So I think that would be a high expectation to expect that to happen at a meeting of tourists at short-term rentals to be able to do it. It's always been kind of a goal, just like I said, even on recycling to get that going. So this to me is one notch more complicated.
Yeah.
but even if you get 5% of it, it's still better than zero,
Yeah,
Well,
maybe
better than
we can
zero.
just think about programming in general for
Yep.
rentals.
I think all of these programs, including food composting, it could be a topic to just give thought to of how to improve the percentage of
Seems like you need like a
visitors.
dedicated approach essentially.
Right.
We could just ban rentals.
Well, I mean, there's
Or
kind of
wrong committee.
There are a few main rental groups on the island that I think we know without having to name them, and I think we've done some things maybe in the past with Lights Out and other efforts. I just don't know what our relationship is like with those property management groups or what have you. If they'd be receptive to us approach them and saying, hey, there's a few things we're trying to do, glass and composting. Is there some? I don't. education we can do or something for the guests?
I currently manage about a dozen properties for agent owned, and I can tell you it would be a monumental task to get guests to do any of this.
They're on vacation.
I mean, a large part of our job in the summer is, they will fill up to overflowing recycle bins with trash. We have to go take all that. I just can't imagine. And these are responsible adults, except for the week they're here.
And
They're on vacation.
yeah, I was
that
gonna
answers
say,
that question.
because it's not even, it's asking them to separate it and it's asking them to drive somewhere to drop it off while they're on vacation. So I don't know how many
Sure.
visitors will do that, but I think Kevin had a good point in that if the homeowner, is providing the information and they happen to be renting to someone that actually is passionate about it and is like been composting at home and was like, oh, thank God I didn't want to throw all this in the trash, they might be willing to do that extra step. But I don't imagine the majority are gonna, if they can't even put the right thing in the container at the house, that they're gonna drive it somewhere else while they're on vacation.
I will say maybe we could, because we do an introduction letter, with some general rules, and it might be something we could throw in the same way that we say, if you're traveling with small children, you can call so-and-so to rent a crib. If you're interested in composting or glass recycling, reach out and we could give you more information, So maybe
Volunteer,
the
voluntary
small
basis.
group of people that might actually
To
want
the property managers or the
Right.
owners. Yeah, I mean, that's a good way to do it, right? A lot of people, when we first started coming, we rented, and the gentleman who house rented, there was a binder. And
Yeah.
the binder would explain different
Right.
things, and it
Right.
could be a letter, and they're saying,
Yep.
we belong to this recycling program, and if you want to do that, you can take your glass here, and you can take your food here, and here's the
Right.
combination.
I mean, it certainly
And
doesn't hurt to put it out
getting-
there.
Yeah, getting 5% is better than no percent,
Right.
right?
I don't think you all want the combination though, kind of freely available, do you?
Right.
You don't want it in a
People that didn't
binder.
go through the training.
I don't know that, I think if you're the owner and you're putting it out there for, here's a combination as a renter, I don't think that would be much of an issue.
Okay.
Because it stays confined to that residence.
Yeah.
Yeah, you obviously don't want it flying around the neighborhood.
Right.
Can you reset and redo the combination if you needed to, or is it a one-time?
So it's a combination lock with the dial. So I
You can always
think
change the lock
You
and,
can always just get another one if you needed to.
yeah.
I think it could be redialed.
I mean, it would be more precarious if the residents had to pay something for that service, but if it's a free service, it's just it's communication, and try to get as many of those people as we can.
They said
Well-
if you've got somebody coming that is in the mindset, then it would be something they probably would continue to do while they're here.
Yeah.
I'll
I-
just
I have
add,
a-
oh,
sorry.
sorry. I just wanted to his point of changing the code. So since you have to go through the training to get the code, the code is the same for all the carts in the program. So if you wanted to change your codes, then you would then be responsible for somehow getting that information to the residents that are using them. So I would be hesitant to say that it's easy to change the code on the lock. It would be hard to change the code for the whole program. But I mean, I know yes, we don't want the code just out there for anybody to use, but I maybe I'm being naive, but I'm thinking the likelihood that the vacationer read that, saw that code, put it in their head, is down
And
at
wanna
the
go
beach
steal
and
or
saw
trash
the cart
trash.
and was
Sold
like,
it, no, they sold
I
it to
know
the
that-
owners of the Acme so that they
Yeah.
could cheaply dispose of their food.
I can put motor
Right, that,
oil.
but
conspiracy.
like the vacationer, I wonder if they're like, oh, I know the code to that cart. Let's throw our trash in there, like, because that's the point of the code is to prevent trash. So it's, I guess, a risk for sure. But I don't. I guess you probably know your town better than I do as far as how quickly the word would spread if it was in a management book. But to her point, it could be you need to reach out to us to get that information instead of just having it in the notebook. It could be everything, or it could be the city's website, and then they have to do the thing to get the code.
Do you weigh the containers?
A great question. So we don't weigh the container when we lift it. That we don't have a scale on the truck on that lift system. Those have proven to be costly, and you have to keep them calibrated and such. So what we do is when we go to Bees Ferry to empty the truck, we're getting that tonnage every day. And we're tracking all of the tips. So for example, if your cart was 100% full or 50% full, the driver can put that in. So what I do is at the end of the month, I look at how many tons we took to Bees Ferry and how many tips in total we had, and calculated all the way to the quarter of a cart, and then that way I can estimate what a cart weighed, and then I look at how many carts you had full, and I let you know what your tonnage was based on that. So there is a math.
So
to
from a fiscal responsibility, we will get, in these performance reports, we'll get an idea of how well, I mean, because the measure is, right, you want to fill your carts. So, okay, good, yeah, because that would be hard.
Yes,
I mean,
so-
at $480 a month, I mean, that's a decent amount of money. So to know how well the program is, so we can evaluate that we're spending tax money wisely. Now, the city's already decided to participate in this?
No, that's on
We're
your
making a
agenda
proposal
tonight.
to them. Okay,
Right.
okay.
I
Yeah, I think
have
that'll
a
be,
comment
that's good.
question when you get a second.
Yeah, I'm good.
Comment first, and it kind of builds on some things that you've said. Whether or not we get tourists to participate in a composting program, or whether or not we get a huge number of residents, to me, there's a message being sent by this committee that the Isle of Palms is an environmental friendly place to be, and we are interested in recycling and, baby steps. If we get some property owners to participate, as Doug said, that's better than zero. So that's my major attraction to this program. I have one administrative question. You've talked about it being a pilot program. May I infer that that's an annual contract, or may we decide to go into it a year-by-year basis so that we can start and evaluate and decide whether we want to move forward?
Yes. So it did begin as a pilot program. The city received a grant for their program, and that went well for the first year. So the city themselves now have it in their budget for this year to continue the program and expand it. So technically, the program itself has surpassed its pilot, but bringing in new, it'll be a pilot for anybody that's trying it for the first time, certainly. But yes, that would be the goal, would be a 1-year contract.
Okay.
And everybody can renew or not renew at that time. The main reason for that length of contract is because since the city is maintaining that website, she doesn't want to be every month adding carts and then taking locations off. So out of respect for that, she's asked that
It takes a
everybody.
while to get it going anyway.
Absolutely, yeah. You don't want to cancel it before you get a chance to get it started. So we want to give it a chance to grow. Yes.
I had two questions. So the first question is, with the $480 as a monthly charge, how is that determined, and is it based on population or?
Sure. So it's a tip. We call it a tip rate. So it's number of tips, and that's assumed. So I probably should have brought the quote with me, but it's been so long since I wrote it up. But I believe is it 2 locations with 2?
It is.
Okay. So we basically figure out if you've got 2 carts and you're being serviced twice a week, then I do the math for how many tips that is each month, and then we multiply that times our tip rate. And that tip rate is determined it's more so based on location. So you asked if it's based on population. So for example, Isle of Palms is on the outer skirts of the Tri-County area, so it's kind of based on how far outside of our circle of our main customers it is, can sometimes affect a tip rate. But it's per tip, and so we're assuming that the number of carts we've quoted you and the number of service days that each cart is getting tipped at that time. If we get 3 months in and you guys just aren't hitting your goals and you want to drop it down to 1 cart instead of 2 at a location, we could consider that. So we could reevaluate at that point and decrease if we needed to. Hopefully we're going to have the opposite problem. But if we were to have that and you wanted to decrease, the the couple of things that are kind of non-negotiable is twice a week service. That's mainly because you don't want the carts to start to smell and be gross. You know, one of the things with the city program is by the time you bring your waste to that cart, it's probably been sitting on your counter already for a few days. So, you know, that doesn't take long for bugs to start happening. And so the longer that sits, the less the residents want to open that lid and put theirs in. So we recommend no less than twice a week service. But other than that and the 1-year contract, those are the only two kind of laid in stone. But the other things we could certainly work with you throughout the year to change if needed. For example, with the city, at Halloween, we realized there was going to be an influx of pumpkins. So we actually, negotiated an extra pickup. And there was a lot of pumpkins. So we're certainly flexible in that regard, up or down, as your needs need to be met. So.
Okay.
So the unit tipping, I just want to follow up, but the unit tipping fee includes all your expenses are tied into a tipping fee.
Yes.
So, but the tipping fee varies based on, like you said, miles or something like that.
Yes.
There's no, joining the program isn't subsidizing or providing any discounts back to who's got the mother contract or the base contract.
No, it is not.
So we're solely being charged based on your formula for where we're located within the distance. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm treating you as if you were a business on Isle of Palms that reached out to me and wanted to, join our services. If anything, we are trying to be thoughtful in keeping our prices down for this pilot program. So if anything, it's about $1 a tip, 50 cents to $1 less than what I would probably quote a business because of that, because we want to grow this
Do you
program.
have a minimum, like 1 cart 2 days a week? Or is it coming out here, is that below your minimum or is that about at your minimum?
So a minimum price would be $125. Like the absolute, any customer in Charleston would be paying at least $125, even if they only wanted 1 cart and once a week.
Okay.
As for how minimum service, we try to cater it to the customer. So there are customers that only want service once a week, and they're just not, they might just be a small office space that has a kitchen that they want to do it in. But then restaurants, we try to cater it to their needs. Currently, we don't have anybody on Isle of Palms today, but we do have Sullivan's Island Elementary, and we have Obstinate Daughter. So we are kind of coming out this way at this time. So I think
so
we're
it's-
out here twice a week, so that works out
So
well.
it's going to be 2 carts twice a week, is it, we're starting with?
Total of 4 carts, 2 locations
So-
with 2
So
carts
is it-
at
I mean,
each location.
So wouldn't it, for a pilot, why wouldn't we start 1 cart at each location? And then if as it go, save a little money. If it's working, then automatically convert to a 2nd cart. That's why I was asking about the minimum. I mean, this is probably the city council's
Yeah, I don't
question,
recall
but-
who came up with the starting point, so we could certainly talk about that if you guys
Just
think
curious.
that.
What does Folly have?
Folly only has 1 cart, and that's mainly because of their space. So right now, they've got it in kind of an enclosed area near their community center, and they only
Okay.
had room for 1. They want to grow it and put 2 there,
Okay.
or add another location so they can add another. But for now, that's the only reason they only have 1. But every other one in the pilot program, including the county, has 2 carts in each location.
I have a question.
Sure.
So if Isle of Palms did not sign up for your program and I wanted to compost and go through your program, where is the nearest receptacle that I would use?
So we have West Ashley, James Island, and downtown.
So there's really nothing close for us if we
Yeah.
don't, okay,
Currently, the town of Mount Pleasant hasn't joined, so
Okay.
I would say
all right.
mainland Charleston would
All right.
be the closest.
Megan, you had said that social media was one of the ways that you get the word out to people. So on social media, are these sites that are managed by the city, the towns, or are they sites that, like there's a Isle of Palms Friends and something? There's some local websites that done by residents, there's some that are done by, the city has a website. I feel like one of the problems that we're having or kind of struggling with right now with some things is helping people to know what we're doing and what's available. And so I'm just kind of curious about
Sure.
a little bit more detail about that.
So the locations of the carts currently in the program are all on property that's owned by that municipality. So
No,
this,
no, I mean, how are how are you getting the information? What sites are you
oh, the
using?
websites.
Yeah,
Okay,
are they-
websites, you mean the
Marketing
websites.
plan.
Your
Okay.
market, yeah, how are you marketing this to?
So I would say the city's doing the bulk of the marketing, and they are very active on Facebook and I think Instagram. And then Smart Recycling also has platforms on both of those, and so we also share anything the city shares about the program. We try to piggyback that and reshare it.
So is the City of Charleston
the City of
Facebook
Charleston
page
does the-
or City of Charleston Instagram?
I think it's called Charleston Sustainable or Sustainable Charleston. Is it
Okay.
Sustainable?
Yeah, that's the
Charleston?
Instagram handle, I believe.
Okay. Yeah, Sustainable Charleston, I believe, is their handle.
Okay.
And so they do the bulk of it. I know Folly Beach reached out to me to express that they are planning some sort of big promotional push to really grow their program. We haven't talked yet about what all they have planned. I don't know if it's just going to be social media based or not. But I also know the city even did like news releases when we first started the program. So maybe that's something as well.
Yeah, and my nonprofit would be happy to help spread the word as well. Because I haven't mentioned this enough times in the past, but it's a very big climate impact to divert food waste. It's one of the biggest items you can do outside of energy or transportation. So, doing this would be a very big climate win for the city as well.
Did I answer that well? Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Are there any other questions?
Exhaustive list of questions. Thank you very much.
Yes,
You're
thank
very,
you.
very
Thank you.
patient.
We appreciate you
And
coming.
And you know your business well, so appreciate it.
Should we move on to old business?
We
Yes,
can
yep.
Take an action on this, or?
I
So-
think we have some
No,
time
that's part of
under new business.
Yeah, I just have quick, old business, just some quick updates
Okay,
on the beach signs. Talked to Robert yesterday about that. He has 22 of the 53 are installed. They're doing a few a week. So probably another, I think they're, on track to have it done by the end of the winter. So, what are they, a third of the way there? So they're working on that steadily.
Those the turtle
Any
signs? Those-
That's the turtle signs,
Just-
yeah.
Just a quick comment. My wife noticed it the other day. She goes, "Look at this sign."
Look at that,
She goes,
already
"Why-
doing its
Why don't
work.
they have this there?" Oh,
They're going to, we're going to.
It was
They
definitely
seem to be
noticeable.
using the existing posts for adopted dune or something
Okay.
in my neighborhood, but they seem to have gotten them all the way south of the pier.
Okay,
All-
good.
just
All the
about
way
ev-
to
Just
Breach
about
Out.
every path has one
Good.
now.
They look
Yeah.
fantastic.
Good.
My wife noticed it right away.
Very good. Litter update, I had just a quick,
Did I give a wildlife?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Mary. I wanted to mention a report that Debbie and I participated in a National Eagle Survey, bald eagles, on the 6th of January, and this goes into a national database. And the data is set by the Army Corps of Engineers, and data is collected by the Audubon Society. So we were working for Audubon, South Carolina, and there are many groups involved surveying where eagles are on this date, the 6th and the 7th. People like SCDNR, U.S. Fish and Wildlife, U.S. Forest Service, and of course Audubon. We all went out on this day, and Debbie and I and 3 others who used to work rescuing and treating injured bald eagles enjoyed going out. We went to, Debbie was head of the medical clinic. She was the medical director. So she was in charge of the eagles there for the whole state, really. We visited 7 sites in Mount Pleasant, Isle of Palms, and Sullivan's Island, and we were able to see 5 eagles. We saw them at both active nesting sites. And majority of the ones we saw were on the Isle of Palms. From the Isle of Palms, from Dewey's Inlet, we went up into Ocean Point and went out onto the beach and saw 3 more eagles flying around up there. So I was glad that the Isle of Palms was well represented. So we turned in our data to Audubon, and we hope next year to have more information.
Yeah.
You want to mention
Well,
that?
there used to be on the South Carolina DNR website, the biologist Charlotte Hope for 30 years has been flying around the state. She would divide it into quadrants each year, and visually locate every bald eagle nest in the state. And so there was a very useful map on their website that unfortunately they had to take down just last year, I think, because somehow developers were using it nefariously. I don't know what they were doing, but so they had to take it down. And anyway, so we were kind of winging it. We knew where there were. Sorry.
Pun intended?
We
Nice
knew
intro.
there's one of the most watched nest in the state is right over here on Founder's Way.
Mount Pleasant.
Because it's so easily observable. And the developers did the right thing there. They got a lot of flack. They really wanted it to go away and made every effort to make it go away quietly, but it wouldn't. And so they said, heck with it. They fenced off, like a couple acre plot and said, fine, the eagles can have it. But that eagle nest has been there, or at least to our knowledge, it's been monitored since Hurricane Hugo. And it's very successful. They fledge 2 chicks successfully almost every year.
Wow.
So it's really cool, very easy to see.
It's a beautiful
They've
thing
got
to
parking
watch.
spaces.
It's a beautiful thing to watch.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, the chicks, their eaglets, their heads
Yeah,
pop up.
right.
The next thing you know, they're walking around. There.
It happens
It's
really
beautiful.
fast.
They're huge.
Um,
They're huge. Too.
Yeah. And then there's another nest at Boone Hall Plantation, and it's right on the entrance road. And that's the only eagle we actually saw in the nest. She was kind of looking at us through a hole.
They're beautiful, majestic creatures.
The one
They
at
really
Founder's
are.
Way, you're just almost looking up, straight up, and you can't see. I'm sure there was an eagle sitting on eggs in it, but
Yeah.
we saw another one across the road, so that might have been the mate.
And if anybody's interested in monitoring the progress of the Founder's Way nest, they do have their own Facebook page. There are some really great photographers that spend a lot of time photographing that nest.
Those are such,
and the
they're
birds.
such beautiful creatures. How can you not?
Okay, that's all we have about
Yeah.
wildlife. It was fun.
That's great.
That's great.
And you had an update on Fisher Recycling
Yes,
for Living?
had some contact with Elizabeth Fisher. She said that the amount in the bins is growing each month. She's encouraged by that. She did say that the marina usage has dropped off, I guess, with boating season. She says that the Harris Teeter is the leading in terms of quantity. That one's better used. I do think on this note that I guess I like the idea and just want to be sure we're on the same page of pursuing, and I'll talk to Elizabeth about this, moving that can to the Carmen R. Bunch Park or adjacent to that driveway. Does everybody think that's maybe a better location? We agree on that?
We'll have to put a notice in the Island Eye or something for people
Yep,
to
we
know.
would need to so I'll talk to her about kind of breaking the habit or how, if that's more detrimental.
Maybe we
Right.
could put up a
to
big
move it
sign
now.
at Harris Teeter
That's what I
saying,
was going to say. Yeah, but just put up.
It's
a-
over.
It has moved.
It's over there now, yeah.
Glass recycling bin has moved to.
probably have to do that.
She did say that she was working on new signage for both sites, so maybe we could, while she's doing that, we could, if we wanted to move them. Sounds like everybody's agreeable to that, with
Yeah.
the idea of we'll put directions in the location of the old sign, so that would be good.
Great.
That's all I have on Fisher, unless anybody has any questions on that.
So they were also going to put something in the Island Eye News. I
She
think.
said in her note that they are still working on a press release.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because Island Eye has a Wednesday deadline, a week from yesterday, or a week from today,
Okay.
anything for the next issue.
Are we going to get a report from them about the tonnage or?
I don't know that, don't know that we've ever asked for that, but I'll inquire with her.
How long has it been now? Does anybody know how long the program's been going?
A few months.
Yeah, maybe 3 or 4 months.
Maybe we can ask it 6 months for her to come in and provide a summary of that.
She did ask, she asked if if you had any specific questions for her or had a need for her
Whatever
to.
the 6-month anniversary, maybe that next meeting or that meeting, if she could come in and give us an update, that would be
Yeah.
great, provide some data. Which reminds me too, we were gonna get a periodic update litter report, and I think that's kind
No,
of,
the green, I know there's supposed to be an update on the greenhouse report, because that was in the minutes.
yeah. And I'd like to make a motion to postpone the discussion of water quality to the next meeting, because I know it's 2 minutes to 5, and didn't we want to vote on?
Well, I only have a quick update, and I think that, well,
Everybody saw the email threads. But yeah, once you do the update, we can always put it as a new agenda item too.
so on water quality, we did do our first test and came back, and the quantities came back kind of over their measurable limits. I had a quick dialogue with the water keepers fellow, and he just said, yeah, the numbers are kind of off the charts.
I looked at him too, and he agreed. His baseline was a little bit higher than what I was using, but yeah, it was high. They were like, the maximum level for that method was like 2,540 or something like that. And the actual benchmark you would use for the inlet for that particular water's beneficial use was like 300. So it's way over, which means we have a lot of coliform. At least by that measure, on initial scanning test, one would say that we might have a problem. And what you normally would do is propose a more rigorous next step of how do we identify
Figure out
what
what
that
that is.
problem is.
So,
Fecal matter?
It was total
Yep.
coliforms, yeah. I mean, there's going to be a combination of two. You're going to have the runoff, which might include animal waste, and then you're going to have basically septic, anything that might be septic.
so we need to, I think that we as the water group will circle back on next steps, because, I mean, as it is, it's kind of off the charts, as
Yeah.
Doug has mentioned, and could be, I guess, raccoons in the drainage canal, could be dog pens adjacent to it, could be any number of things. So it's almost so high, it's not useful to know, because it's kind of off the charts. So we did 3 different testing sites, and all 3 were all off the charts. So we haven't really talked about next steps, and we'll get together and.
Yeah, and I'm
do that.
happy myself, I can't speak for the others, but I'm happy to find time for a meeting like we did that one time if we need to. So you let us know.
Yep, we'll do that.
But I think where we go now is into a decision tree. First of all, do we have data that we think we can make any decisions on? And if we do, then what's the next step? And if not, then maybe what we do is we do a duplicate test and see what the.
That'd be my first instinct, is let's get one more test, and if it's the same result, then
Yeah.
we take it seriously and move.
Yeah, I think too, what we can look at, let's make sure, I think, talk to you all too, we can get a deeper discussion about how exactly it took the samples, where they were in the ditches and the runoff and all that. Make sure it wasn't the inlet water coming back, it was the actual runoff going out, so.
So the water group will circle back.
Okay, sounds good.
Sounds like we'll test again and then come back to you all with those findings. So, I think that concludes old business for me.
Okay, thank you. New business, we have to.
Excuse- I have an
yes.
old business.
Oh, yes.
Sorry. In the minutes from our last meeting, it was mentioned that this meeting, there would be an update on the Charleston County Greenhouse report, and there may not be any, but that was in the minutes. I don't know who's in charge. Belvin, is that your area? I mean,
I was wondering, as you brought that up a little earlier in the meeting, did I say I would give a presentation on that? Because I don't recall that, but it's possible I just lost
I
track
saw-
over
I saw-
the
yeah, I
holidays.
remember.
I passed on to you, because Ariel with the county gave a presentation on the findings of the county greenhouse gas audit. And they had it broken down by municipality, and IOP actually had the highest. It was tied with, I think, Kiowa. Yeah, but of all the municipalities, IOP had the highest per capita emissions.
is that report available
Yes.
online?
Yes, so One thing I can do after this meeting in the next week is pass on all the information I have and maybe try to solicit some more detailed information if I can from Ariel, and just get all of that in front of us, because it's
Something we need to.
it's a concerning finding that
Yeah,
IOP
absolutely.
is the highest per capita emissions.
Well, based on housing sizes, traffic, with the beach use, it doesn't surprise me.
Right, it makes sense, but at the same time, not ideal. And
No,
there's
it's not
a
ideal.
lot of work to be done.
Which is interesting because quite frankly, the committee or the council wasn't interested in taking any action on climate. So
Right, so
chicken and egg.
yeah. So getting some storytelling together as a green committee, saying we have an issue here, that's going to be important.
So our climate committee, then, we have our climate subcommittee too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's get that report out and let's have a discussion there too.
Yeah, that's homework for us, let's say. It's like, let's get all the information we can from the county findings.
Yeah.
And
I
get that
think this-
packaged for next meeting.
And I think this is what we expected, knowing that the committee met for just the first time last year, that once we get our legs under us with a year, the subcommittees, and we get some data and information, we can start really looking at some of these issues based on the topics that we said. So this is good.
So Belvin, do you think that, and we had, at our last meeting, we talked about kind of the next few meetings in terms of presentations. I know we wanted to get the food. This month, I had also on there the greenhouse and PFAS on there for kind of, I was thinking presentations in the beginning part of the year. Would the
Could be February. Yeah.
would Ariel, or would it be, who would we reach out to do that? And is
So, if y'all remember, Stuart Weinberg came and talked about the city's climate action plan. Stuart helped Ariel with this diagnostic, with this greenhouse gas audit. So Stuart is perfectly qualified to come and speak on it.
could you reach out to Stuart, or you want me to?
I'd be happy to.
Okay,
And
for
on
the
the
February
P-
meetings, does that sound agreeable to everybody?
And I think on the PFAS, what would be good is if maybe let's pick a month. Maybe it's March. And if we say March, I'll find a speaker for March. If not, I'll volunteer to step, off and give. So I'm not an expert, but I know enough about it because it's part of our business plan, but, and what we do. But if we could maybe target March, I'll try to get a speaker to come in, and maybe one of the local consultants I can reach out to, and they'd be happy to come in, knowing that it could lead to eventually some sort of project or effort. Does that sound okay to everybody?
Yeah.
Does that need to be a motion, or is that just?
If you would just, between now and the next meeting, so if Belvin will try to arrange for February speaker, Doug, if you would try to arrange for March's speaker, and then we'll just confirm that at our next
Okay.
meeting, that kind of like we're doing now with the
Okay.
greenhouse audit.
Okay, great. Perfect, thank you.
Madam Chair, I have one more old business.
Yes, ma'am.
From the minutes for our last meeting, so I think it's old business, we have talked a couple of times about student committee members. And in the minutes from last meeting, you may want to answer to this, Douglas, but it mentions in the minutes that you and Councilman Bogosian brought the issue to the city council. And then it says, they, who I assume is city council, would like the committee to send a recommendation to them to vote on. So I don't think we're any further along. Are we supposed to find students to recommend to take to the city?
No,
I thought that's their job.
that's correct, yeah. So where and I was going to talk about this briefly in miscellaneous business, that we can talk now. The council does need to amend and it wasn't done by, I think it was done by resolution. This group was created and your membership was created. That needs to be amended, and that is on their agenda for this month. They didn't have a regular meeting in December, so that would happen the end of this month. They also have one candidate that's been identified as a student, local resident Chris Burrell. His daughter is a student and very interested in environmental issues. She's a high school student, I think a junior. So we've verified that she would be willing to participate, which sounds like she would be, but she would not actually participate in until your next meeting. So we do, but
Good, okay.
assuming that things
we're
are
waiting.
successful at council this month with reorganizing the committee's membership and making that appointment. So they need to take 2 steps, and they haven't done that just
Okay.
yet, but should
Stay
happen
on
this
'em.
month. Yep.
Thank you. The end.
Is there any other old business?
A lot of pent-up old business from 2022.
Okay. New business is with regards to considering whether or not to make a recommendation on the composting operation. So discussion, yes.
I'll take a stab at something. I think that the conversation we've had so far about trying to build a place and a culture on this island of one that is environmentally minded for glass recycling, compost, what are our emissions, is very forward-looking. I think it may be attractive to visitors at some point as well, maybe not right now, but as the time unfolds and the interest and the wave kind of grows about environmental friendliness, I think getting something like this in place is a good measure. I think I agree with Doug's suggestion that we maybe start with less than 4, just to be financially, fiscally responsible. And maybe we say, okay, we're gonna have 1 bin at the 2 sites, so 2 bins total. And then we can, maybe once the bins hit, 50% full regularly or 75% full regular, I'm not sure what the marker would be. Then when we say, okay, let's add the 2nd bin at those locations. That seems to me the wisest way to go about it, rather than just having 4 bins sitting there that are 25% full.
I was thinking that, John, thanks. I didn't want to be
Yeah.
overstepping but thank you for
Are
bringing
you
that
going to
up.
make
So-
a motion?
So,
Doug,
yeah, I guess-
so just one question before we, if we did half the number of bins, that would impact the amount that we pay?
I understand it would be half, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that they've
That's what-
worked that in.
Yeah, that's what I thought, so.
So,
If it's a pilot, you just kind of.
yeah, I would recommend that, this group, if you choose to recommend, but that you recommend implementing the program, and that I think at a staff level, we will manage, and I don't want to create a situation where somebody's gone through training, they show up with a bunch of compost, and it's a 85, 90% full bin. So I could see us very quickly, if in the first 3 weeks they're 50% full, I think we would then order the second group of cans kind of immediately. But I think your point is good. If we start with 1 and it's not, it's just covering the bottom of the can, we'll just leave it at 1. But I think we would ask Smart Recycling to notify us very quickly when we were getting anywhere near to assure that nobody ever showed up to an empty can and had to do something else with their compost. But I do think that's a good idea, just in case it's very slow to get off the ground, which it probably is going to be.
I think so. I think
Glass
like Fisher was.
So can you make
Yeah.
can we make a motion attached to that motion is we'd like to put a note on that says, please consider starting maybe with 1 container.
Start with 1, and as soon as the need
Soon as the
to
need,
go up to
soon-
2.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, if it's an overwhelming response and it goes to 3, I think your recommendation is really start the program and adequately supply bins as needed, and I think the city's going to be happy to
I'm
do
also,
that.
I also think it reflects well on this committee that we are thinking of the taxpayers and thinking of
Absolutely.
the decisions. that
Yeah,
go
we
along
don't-
with
we
it.
don't
We're
wanna-
not just being.
A bunch of
just
empty
chasing-
cans.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
So,
think that's smart.
John, I'll make the motion.
Sure.
That we proceed with the pilot program. And we'd like to suggest to the city to consider starting with 1 can twice a week at each location rather than 2, and ramp up accordingly based on the volumes that are seen in the beginning of the program. That will save a little bit of money, and it'll have us making sure we're checking the units and the data frequently and reacting accordingly.
I second.
Could I, just for the,
Do we need more formal language?
no, I think that's perfect. Yeah, I think
Okay.
that's perfect. But it is the group's expectation that this, if feasible, would all start at the edge of Carmen R. Bunch Park and the marina, Not
Yeah,
the Harris
and so
Teeter.
adding to the motion, our suggestion to the city is locate at the Carmen or Bunch Park as a easily accessible central location, which might be less burdensome during season when there's going to be a lot of vacationers and out-of-towners coming into the parking lots and the other areas of Front Beach and the marina.
Yeah, co-located with the glass recycling.
Yep,
And then the other part is, we'd like to see that this be co-located with the glass.
yep.
And appropriate signage without being excessively aesthetically unpleasing.
Is young Matt going to be the one that reviews the contract? Because we want to make sure it's an annual contract. Who will do that? And also, they indicated they were
Oh, yeah.
flexible about it and.
The rider, we want to make sure we add the rider or the rider and whatever rider we added to the glass contract around liability of the material stopping with their taking it. For the city's liability, we want to add that to it as well. We recommend that the city attorney consider adding that to it as well. It's getting a long motion.
Nicole's got it.
Indemnification rider, what was, I missed one thing.
Annual,
Yes, that
it's
it
only
would
for
be 1 year, yep.
And
Yeah, it should
you
have
will
to
be
be-
getting an updated amount based on the 1 can per site pickup.
Yes,
It's not going to be $480.
Yeah, if it's an annual
Correct.
contract too, we want to make sure that it's a deliberate renewal. If we don't make a notification by a date, the contract automatically renews and we have no choice. So,
So as part of the contract,
exhausted. It was long.
can we or should we include any information in there about training, having a training event on the island or the attendance at the farmer's market? Because she indicated that she goes to the Charleston Farmers Market, I think it was.
Yeah,
Oh,
they've
West
teamed
Hampshire.
up with the city of Charleston on occasions. We could put that in there. My strong inclination is that they will do that regardless of whether it's,
It's part of the contract. I think,
oh, in the existing contract is the.
Is it in
showing
there
up.
about promotional?
I don't think so.
training and
I'm saying I
promotion?
don't think we need to put that in there for them to have every incentive to help out, but.
Well,
we could.
they're incentivized by getting the business, right?
Right, it's
So
their best interest to.
It's in their best interest to train. Okay, so I think that concludes the
it's a very
Motion.
complex motion. So on the training, we're gonna let them know that the group expects, as part of this agreement, that they would adequately train
yeah,
or offer local, I think that was your point, Sandy.
Yeah,
that it be
I think it would
local,
be-
in-person.
Yeah, I think that would be great to have kind of a local in-person training, I don't know, at the
Opportunity.
Windjammer or someplace like that.
Center or something.
yeah, and I guess the other thing is we also suggest that we publish an article or a notice in the Island Eye about this new program.
Yeah, well, actually, I have a few thoughts because Katie McCain has taken a decent chunk of her time to promote the city's composting program. And I think because there's not a sustainability director with the city of IOP, it would be on us to sort of take that Katie role. So just in terms, it doesn't have to go in the motion, but in terms of like things we can do, it's showing up at farmers markets, putting out press releases, working smart on that. I just had the thought as we were talking, maybe some local restaurants would be down to contribute to a raffle for folks who enter into the program. Maybe like comp a meal. You're chosen at random if you sign up for the program. So just some little fun incentive to have folks sign up. Just being creative like that.
My God, that motion took longer than the whole meeting.
Are you making a motion to adjourn? I'll second.
No,
Wait, wait.
we're still
Hadn't
on a
gotten
vote.
through
We
the-
still have a
yeah.
vote. Did we get a second on the motion?
Do we want to
Yes.
go,
So we just need a vote.
there's a lot of
I'm
crap.
not putting,
That was
not
just
all of that goes into
administrative.
motion.
Yeah.
No,
No, do you
that's
want-
all
Okay.
administrative stuff. Not all of it goes.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I can word it, but you guys are just recommending that council do this.
Yes.
And then council's got to work out the rest of the
There you
details.
go.
Thank you.
So kind of the discussion was combined with the motion.
So we had the motion. now
Yes, we still need to vote.
Was it seconded? I know
Yes.
the
Yes,
motion.
I seconded.
Okay,
Yes.
Yeah.
yep, need to vote, Sandy.
Are we ready for a vote?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
All right, can we, before we, do you have anything else, Sandy?
No,
I just
no.
wanted to recap that I have what I need for the next meeting. And I have a lot of notes here, but kind of action item, we're gonna reach out to Smart Recycling, get that contract underway. We want to move both Fisher and and food composting to Carmen R. Bunch side. We're going to ask Fisher about data numbers, what kind of data they're collecting, and a report from that, and potentially a 6-month
Come back in.
return back
Yep.
here, correct?
And present the data and the information, yes.
Belvin, you're going to request Ariel's presence at the next meeting?
Or Dr. Weinberg.
Yep. Doug, you're going to pursue somebody potentially for the March meeting on PFAS?
Yes.
Is that it? Anything else
You're
between
going to
now?
nag
Can I
city
make-
council about a student and
Yeah, I've
revising
got-
the resolution and appointing a student.
And then we had the water.
Oh, I have an additional sample. So
Yeah,
additional
we have a water
sample,
quality follow-up, and then what about the green report? Is there a follow-up on that?
Yeah.
and then,
Greenhouse.
and then council, on the membership at their meeting.
So is it-
Can I ask one other thing of the group as well? For our next meeting, I'd like for the groups that we have, the wildlife, litter, and water quality, to be thinking maybe about goals for the coming year. Does that sound like that would be a good idea? And that's something that perhaps we can have some email exchanges even before the meeting, so that when we come to the meeting, we have some things to present to the group.
So what we can do, since we're not really supposed to, we in the water subcommittee and the climate subcommittee, we can go back and forth, come up with the goals, and then send that to the chair.
Also,
That's what we
Madam
did
Chair,
last
are
time.
these 4 pillars that we have, are they sufficient? I mean, is there any other
You have 4?
piece that we need?
You mean 3?
4.
4,
We have
Therefore-
wildlife, water,
litter.
litter,
and
and.
climate action.
Oh, climate action wasn't on the list.
Yeah,
Okay.
so we should add, just as a editorial note, we should add a 4th climate action on the old business. I think to just
Correct.
keep that on the.
Yeah,
Say, wouldn't the greenhouse report fall under
Right.
that?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's in the climate action category.
Cool.
So,
yes,
And
absolutely.
public education, is a recurring thing that we talk about. That could be a group, because I think in the past it's fallen on individuals of us, like get the notice out to the paper and whatnot. It could be an action group to have the public education piece.
We
So-
had talked about having a regular article from our committee in the paper.
Yeah, it might
I would
even
just-
be
this is-
PR, marketing, even broader.
so just happened between this morning and this meeting, have a series of interviews for a new staff person at the city. The city is hiring for lack of a better term, a public information person in conjunction with the CVB. It's been a longstanding need. We just don't have somebody dedicated to tying into social media and doing all that type of work. So that's a near-term addition to the city staff. So I have, a lot of thoughts about, promoting what this group is doing. And so I think that will happen near-term easily.
If you make the hire, could you invite the new hire to our next meeting so we could meet the
I don't
person?
think they'll be here by your next meeting, but when they come,
Whenever.
yep, absolutely. They'll be making the
Yeah,
rounds
it
of the.
would be great to know
And then the other,
who we're gonna work with.
and then based on what Bevan said, I'm just thinking maybe we have a conversation about annual Earth Day. That's this advisory committee's awareness day. Maybe we do something, an event on Earth Day that this committee helps put together. We're there and we talk about the things we're doing, but also just general promotion. And let's talk
And
about.
the street fair,
Let's
is
add that
even
as a-
before that, it's
Yeah.
in March. We ought to maybe think about our committee
So
having
just
a
to-
table or.
Just to your point about starting
Yeah,
to
so,
promote
Earth Day's
Yeah.
April 22nd.
Yeah, there's
environmental
a
stewardship.
Low Country Land Trust is putting together a calendar of all Earth Week, Earth Month events. So whatever we do could plug into that. There'll be an existing infrastructure for promotion on that.
Let's put that on the agenda.
Madam Chair has a lot of work to do.
All right, I'm going to call this adjourned before we keep.
Second.
Too boisterous.
No, are we done? So you
I think I've got-
clarified? Nicole, you're good?
I've got it.
So I'd like,
Is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
I second.
I've already seconded 3 times. So you second this.
Meeting adjourned.
We're off
I wanna
record,
go.
5:23.
Thank you all. Congratulations and thank you
All
for taking on
right.
the role of leadership.
Great work,
Now,
kids.
I gotta talk
Hold on.
about